Hello OpenMaze experimenters, my name is Kyle Alsbury-Neely, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create interactive goal objects for your experiment using both 3D objects and 2D images. So as you can see, I've already got the Unity editor open and I've got the configuration file for this tutorial docked beside it. Again, you can find this configuration file in the tutorials folder. And for this experiment, we are going to use one of our tutorial environments. We're going to use 3D environment 1. So you're just going to want to make sure that that's added to your build. Again, you just open 3D environment 1, go up to File and Build Settings. And I've already added it to my build, but if you haven't, you're just going to click Add Open Scenes. And once we've done that, we'll just go back and open our launch experiment screen. Okay, so let's take a look at what this experiment does. It's pretty simple. It's going to run one block, and block 1 is going to play trials 1, 2, and then 3. We see that our trial 1 is, like always, our welcome screen. Trial 2 is a 3D environment scene, and trial 3 is our end scene. And we also see that our 3D environment is calling active goals 1 and 2. And if we go down to our goals section, we see that goal 1 is a 3D object goal. And whenever you're using a 3D object, you want to make sure that type is set to 3D. And the object is a cube. So where's OpenMaze getting this object from? Anytime you call a 3D goal, OpenMaze is going to look for the name of the object that you've defined in the 3D objects folder. And you can find that in the project window under Assets, Resources, and then 3D Objects. And you can see that OpenMaze does come with some 3D objects. They're pretty limited, just some simple geometric shapes. And we're going to go over how to add some more later in this tutorial. So as you can see, our goal object is going to call a cube into the scene. You can also assign sound files to goals so that when a participant collects the goal, a sound will play. And these sound files can also be found in the resources folder under sounds. So as we see, our sound is set to drink. So if we go to the sounds folder, we see drink. If we click on that, play that, there's our sound that's going to play when the goal is collected. We can see that the color is set to blue, and this is just an HTML color code, which we'll come back to in a second. And then we also see that the goal is going to be placed in the position -5, 1, and 5 within our environment. Rotation is set to 0, 0, 0, and our scale is set to 1, 1, 1. So let's just go up to our trial 2, and let's just try calling this one 3D object goal into the scene. Because there's only one goal, we'll set our quota to 1 as well, so that when we collect it, the trial will end. And we'll save our configuration file, go back to the Unity editor, and run this experiment. Okay, and we see that when we run the experiment, our cube is placed into the environment. And if we pause the experiment and go up to the scene view window, we can actually just click on this cube. And what you'll notice in the inspector window is that the cube has the same transform parameters that we've defined in the configuration file. So we see that the position is -5, 1, and 5, which corresponds to our position in the configuration file. And we also see that the rotation and scale vectors also correspond to the transform section of the inspector window. Now, say we place this object within the environment and maybe we don't like how big it is, maybe we want to make it a little bigger. We can actually tweak the parameters while in pause mode. Again, remember, if you want to make any manipulations to an object, there's a variety of options to do so in the top left corner. So right now I'm on the scale tool, but we can also move our cube around in the environment. We can also rotate it. And once we're happy with where our goal is and how it's oriented, it's scaling, we can then just go back to the inspector window and record our new vectors into our configuration file. So if we want our cube to appear in the environment like we just manipulated it to be, we would go back to the configuration file and change our vectors. So instead of -5, we'll just change that to -18. Change our second one to 2.6, and we'll change our last one to 15. Rotation, we'll do the same. Obviously, I'm just rounding here. And then we can save our configuration file. We can stop our experiment. Then when we play our experiment again, we see that this time our 3D object is placed in the environment in the exact same way that we manipulated it to be previously. And when we collect the object, we hear the drink sound associated with it, and the trial ends because we have our quota equal to 1. Okay, let's say we want to change the color of our 3D object. The best way to do this is just pulling up a web browser, Googling HTML color picker. And I like using this website, htmlcolorcodes.com, and this just allows you to pick any sort of color that you'd like. Let's maybe pick some sort of nice green. Then what you can do is you can pick up this hex code. Just going to copy that, go back to our configuration file, and then we'll use our new hex code. Then when we save this configuration file and we go back to our experiment, now we see that our cube has been transformed, and now it's the color that we picked in our color picker. Just as a reference here, there we go. This is the color that we picked, and this is now the color of our cube. Now let's say that we want to use a different 3D object as a goal. OpenMaze allows you to do this really easily. So I'm just going to show you how to grab a free asset from the asset store. We'll search for food, and let's go to pricing and only select free options. And I've used this asset pack before. It's just called Adorable 3D Food Set. We can click on that, and we can import that into our Unity project. Because I downloaded this before, I just had to import it, but you'll see a download button. You can hit download and then hit the import button. And then when prompted, we're just going to import the set. Okay, and now you should see a new folder in the assets folder called icons. And we see that it has all of our new food objects. Okay, so if we want to use a food object in our environment, we do have to add a box collider to it, and we have to put it into our 3D objects folder. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. Just what you can do is you can just drag the 3D object into a 3D scene. Then once it's dragged into the 3D scene and you have it selected, you're just going to go to the inspector window, click add component, and then select box collider. And once we've done that, we can then save our new 3D object into our 3D objects folder. And you're just going to do that by navigating to the 3D objects folder, grabbing the object from the hierarchy window, and placing it into the folder. And you can do either original prefab or prefab variant. I just do prefab variant so that I can retain the original prefab in the other folder. Okay, great. And we're just going to rename it from prefab variant to just banana. And then we can delete our banana from the scene. We don't want it in this scene. And if we go back to our configuration file and we replace our object from cube to banana, we can save that, run our experiment again, and this time we see that instead of our cube being generated, we have our banana being generated. Now this isn't really an ideal position for this banana, so I'm going to just bring it back to our original placement, which was -5, 1, and 5. Change our rotation back, and we'll keep the scale. The scale looks pretty good. Can save that. Run our experiment again. And this time we see we have our banana. And if we collect the banana, we have a drink sound. Drink sound is probably not the most appropriate sound for a banana. So let's see what else we have in our sounds folder. We have this eat sound. So let's just change our sound from drink to eat. Again, just hit Control S to save our configuration file. Then we'll run our experiment again. And this time when we collect the banana, we get a nice crunching sound. Again, just like how we added a 3D object, you can add any sort of sound file into the sounds folder, and then you can just call it in the configuration file under the sound parameter. Okay, great. So that's 3D goal objects. Next, let's go over how you can use 2D images as goals as well. So what you'll notice is that for 2D image goals, we have to set type to 2D, not 3D. And also, OpenMaze will look for the 2D image in a different folder than our 3D images. And that folder is under Assets, Streaming Assets, 2D Objects. And as you can see right now, we're using a subfolder of 2D objects. So it'll first search 2D objects, then it'll search tutorial objects. So if we double click tutorial objects, we see that we have this apple file. If we open that, it's just a picture of an apple. All right. So let's go back up to our trial, and instead of calling goal 1, we'll call goal 2. We'll go back to Unity and run our experiment once again. And this time we see that we have our apple image in the scene. Now, when OpenMaze calls a 2D image file as a goal, what it does is it ensures that no matter what direction you approach the goal, it will be viewed the exact same by the participant. So as you can see up here in our scene view window, what's actually happening is as we move around the scene, our 2D image is also rotating to ensure that no matter which way the participant approaches it, it's seen the same way. And this gives it almost a 3D effect, but it is just a 2D image. And if we collect it, crunching sound, probably more appropriate for an apple than a banana. And just like 3D objects, we can easily add 2D images to our experiment. So I'm just going to go back to my web browser and I'm going to look for, well, let's just maybe look for a banana. All right, let's see what we've got here. All right, this looks like a good image. And we can just save this in the appropriate folder. So I'm going to go to my OpenMaze folder here. Again, it's in Assets, Streaming Assets, 2D Objects, and then Tutorial Objects. And I'm just going to save this as banana. Okay, now that we have that saved, you'll see that it does appear in our 2D Objects folder in the Unity editor. And now we'll just go back to our configuration file, and instead of calling apple.png, we'll just call banana.png. We'll save our configuration file, go back up to play. And we see that instead of our apple, now we have our new banana image. And again, any way the participant approaches it will be seen the same. And if we run into the banana, we hear our eat sound once again. And that's the end of the experiment. So as you can see, it's really easy to use any 3D object or any 2D image object in your OpenMaze experiment. Very easy to manipulate where you want to place it in the environment. I hope this tutorial has been helpful. Again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the comment section below. And in the next tutorial, we'll go over how to create landmark objects.